In August of 1950, 4-year-old G.L. Hamilton spent a good part of his day down on the floor, pushing his toy tractors through imaginary mountains of dirt. Put, put, put. To G.L., those were not toys at all. They were bulldozers, motor graders, and scrapers, just like the great big machines his daddy operated. Gordon Hamilton and his brother Johnny owned a successful dirt contracting business called Hamilton Brothers. They built stock tanks, shaped terraces, cleared land, and took on almost any job that required moving a whole lot of West Texas dirt. And working right alongside Gordon was his grown son, Bob. G.L. was 17 years younger than Bob, but he didn't think of him as merely a brother. Bob was his hero. Gordon called his little son Little Bud, and Little Bud called Bob Big Bud. Every afternoon, G.L. listened for the sound of the pickup coming home from work. The moment he heard it, he dropped whatever he was doing, flew out the front door, and raced toward the driveway. His daddy would scoop him up in a great big bear hug. But then Little Bud would wriggle free and run straight to Big Bud. Bob would lift him high into the air and whirl him around and around while G.L. squealed with delight. After a long day on the heavy equipment, Gordon and Bob usually came home looking as though they had been rolled in brown flour. West Texas dust covered their clothes, their hair, and nearly every inch of their faces. Only the whites of their red, irritated eyes showed through all that dirt. On hot days, the sweat made the dust stick even worse. But Bob never seemed too tired to tease his little brother. One evening, as they walked toward the house, Bob asked, "What's for supper, Little Bud? I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Do you know where we could find a good, fat, tender one?" G.L. stared up at him in horror. "Oh, Big Bud, you wouldn't eat a horse, would you?" Bob laughed. "Well, I suppose I could settle for red beans and cornbread. That would be a whole lot easier than catching a horse." Red beans and cornbread happened to be Bob's favorite meal. At the supper table, G.L. watched closely as Big Bud crumbled 2 large pieces of cornbread onto his plate. Then Bob spooned red beans over the top, added plenty of bean juice, and mashed it all together with his fork. He mashed and stirred, added a little more juice, and mashed it again until the whole plate was covered with a thick mixture of beans and cornbread. Then he dug in with great enthusiasm. G.L. thought Big Bud's strange bean-mashing ritual was fascinating, but much too much trouble to try himself. That evening, the family talked about the terrible August heat. Bob laughed and said that whenever he was tempted to complain, he remembered the winter they had spent farming in Colorado. That winter had been so cold that the moisture from Gordon's breath froze on the stem of his pipe. Even the hair inside Bob's nose froze while he worked outdoors. But the cold wasn't Bob's most vivid memory. That honor belonged to the enormous pile of cow manure that had collected outside the barn all winter. When spring finally arrived, Bob had to break through the frozen crust, shovel the manure into a spreader, and drive it through the alfalfa field behind a team of horses. The spreader's metal fingers flung fertilizer in every direction, including all over Bob. By the end of the day, he had to scrub himself outdoors before anyone would let him inside the house. After remembering that job, a little West Texas dust didn't seem so bad. But G.L. wasn't interested in old manure stories. He remembered that Big Bud had promised to play with him after supper. He tugged on Bob's arm. "Come on, Big Bud, let's go outside before it gets dark." Bob finished his dessert, thanked Thelma for the good supper, and followed Little Bud into the yard. For a few wonderful minutes, they ran and played ball together. G.L. raced back and forth with the ball tucked beneath his arm while Bob chased him, pretending that no matter how hard he tried, he simply could not catch that speedy little fellow. G.L. laughed until he could hardly breathe. Then Bob stopped and glanced at the time. "Well, Little Bud, that's all the playing I can do tonight. I have a date with Patricia, and I told her I'd be there by 8 o'clock. The smile disappeared from G.L.'s face. "But Big Bud, why do you always have to go see Patricia? Why can't you stay and play with me? You go to see her every single night." Bob smiled, ruffled his little brother's tow-headed hair, and promised they would play again another time. Then he climbed into his 1947 Ford pickup and drove away. G.L. stood in the yard, watching the taillights disappear down the road. Until Patricia came along, Big Bud's evenings had belonged to him. Now everything was changing. With his lower lip sticking out and his little boots stomping hard against the ground, GL marched back toward the house. "It just isn't fair," he muttered. Then he made his feelings about the situation perfectly clear. Who is this Patricia anyway? I don't like her. But little Bud's grudge against Patricia didn't last very long. The moment he discovered one last piece of chocolate cake in the kitchen, the tears disappeared, and Big Bud's troublesome girlfriend was temporarily forgotten. After all, when you're 4 years old, chocolate cake can fix just about anything.